Ron Stalworth's stand against hate. Welcome to Colorado during the late 1970s. The Ku Klux Klan was a large threat. Thesis statement. The first African-American police officer in Colorado Springs, Ron Eugene Stalworth, took a stand against racism in the midst of a full-time period of segregation. Stalworth infiltrated and manipulated the Colorado Springs chapter of the white supremacist group, the Ku Klux Klan, or the KKK. He conducted a 7-month undercover investigation, which in the short term resulted in exposing 2 chapter members and decreased the number of cross-burnings and bombings in the area. In the long term, Stalworth wrote an autobiography which further exposed the activities of the KKK, and a movie based on his autobiography called Black K-Klansman was produced by director Spike Lee in 2018. Stalworth's work has inspired others to follow suit. The Ku Klux Klan was first developed in the year 1865 by a group of retired Confederate soldiers and captains. The KKK's purpose was to drive fear into the African American population after the Civil War. When slavery was abolished, many whites established in the South still held a grudge against African Americans. To show their unwillingness to accept African Americans in their society, the KKK committed many hate crimes, such as murder and mutilation. Not only was it the KKK, but other general white populace was involved as well. They showed their hate by unfairly accusing African Americans and participating in events called lynchings. Lynchings were a horrible practice in which African Americans were mutilated and tortured by hanging or other horrible things in public areas. The event was like a carnival. Men and women would bring their children, and some people even brought picnic blankets and food. In the 1920s, the KKK had a resurgence. This is when they started to commit the iconic crimes of the group like cross-burnings, mutilations, and murders. Many bodies were strung up to trees and left to hang. After the 20s and into the 70s, the KKK slowly died down and less of the murder and torture was being committed. Cross-burnings and lighter crimes still happened often, and the KKK was still feared by many. Up until the mid and late 20th century, not many people stood up against the KKK. This made it a very bold but necessary move for someone to try and find a way to stop this dangerous group. Ron Stalworth, an African-American cop, took a stand in history by going undercover in the Ku Klux Klan along with his partner, Chuck. Stalworth did the phone calls and the behind-the-scenes activities, while Chuck did the hands-on part, actually going undercover and taking part in their meetings. They both, however, were strategically placing officers on the roads to prevent multiple cross-burnings. This 7-month investigation started with Ron Stalworth replying to a newspaper recruitment ad for the KKK. This ad led to a phone call from the leader of the local Colorado Springs chapter.
Every morning we would check the newspapers to see what was going on. I scanned the classifieds, and I saw this classified. It said Ku Klux Klan for information, and then there was a P.O. box. So I wrote a little note, said I was interested in having more information, and I signed my real name to it. So I mailed it in, gave them the undercover address that we had. I forgot about it. We had what we called an undercover phone line. It was an untraceable line, and I got a response back via the undercover line. And I picked it up one day, and this voice basically said, "Are you Ron Stalworth?" I said, "Yeah." And said that he was the local organizer for the KKK. And he was responsible for the ad, and that he was recruiting. And asked me if I was interested. And I said, "Yeah."
Stalworth talked about the reasons he wanted to join the KKK. Sadly, these reasons were mostly based off of the racist things other people had said to him. Later on in the investigation, the leader of the KKK, David Duke, came to Colorado Springs for a conference. Stalworth was appointed to protect David Duke. Ron was offered a chapter leader position before the Colorado Springs police chief pulled him out of the investigation. Stalworth's boss was thinking that Ron had gone too far. This connects to the theme because Ron Stalworth is taking a stand against the Ku Klux Klan and other racist people, mainly white supremacists. When he does this, he takes a big risk. If he was caught by the KKK, Stalworth would have been murdered. Even though he knows this risk, Stalworth still takes an action against racism in a very courageous way. This will always be remembered as a moment in history that someone decided to take action against white supremacy and one of the largest hate groups in America, the KKK. Ron Stalworth takes a stand for equality among all people and takes a stand against racism. He is one of the few people who took a serious life-risking action against racism and for equality. A short-term impact of Ron Stalworth's actions was the near takedown of the Colorado Springs chapter of the Ku Klux Klan. Some evidence of this is when Ron Stalworth and Chuck unmasked 2 KKK members, stopped multiple cross burnings, the bombing of a gay bar, and the murder of an African-American child. Some examples of consequences that could have happened are that people could have been angry at Ron Stalworth and he would be in danger of being murdered by the KKK. One example of a long-term impact due to Stalworth's actions was the publication of his book and the movie directed by Spike Lee based on that book. They both brought lots of attention to the subject of racism and the KKK, driving people to dig further and to make sure that events like this don't need to happen again. One example of this is an interview, one of many, with Stalworth and a man named Scott Simon, in which questions were asked to find out more about the story. They both brought more attention to what happened and why so many people won't make these same mistakes again. Another example of a long-term impact is James Hart Stern. He became a new leader of a neo-Nazi group.
Today is a long time in the making. A long time in the making. Stand here with this distinguished group of gentlemen because we stand on the backs and the shoulders of some giants who've already paved the way. Today we stand here signing a declaration of dissolution to disband a domestic terrorist group known as the Ku Klux Klan. Edgar Ray Killens, this imperial was of the largest Klan group in Mississippi. Edgar Ray Killens gave me his powers of attorney, which made me his attorney in fact. He's given me approximately 174 letters of confessions of everybody he's ever killed, caused to be killed, his organizational structure. He named everything. But in the process, he gave me his book rights, movie rights, because he wanted the truth to be out. The truth is not a pretty picture, but it has to be told.
James Hart Stern was an African-American black civil rights activist. People like James Hart Stern have gotten a lot of their confidence through Ron Stalworth. Some people, though, see this as a threat to their way of living and their freedoms as an American. Ron Stalworth is a courageous police officer who would risk his life to save others and to stop racism. He is also an inspiration to many people. Stalworth also helps bring awareness to racism and discrimination. This is significant in history because we must understand that we have done wrong in the past, how to fix that wrong, and to make sure that that wrong does not happen again. This is also significant in the present day because these sort of issues are still here, is still going on, and we need to do something about it.
Jews will not replace us! Jews will not replace us! Jews will not replace us! Blood and soil! Blood and soil! Blood and soil! Blood and soil!
This topic does raise a question about future research and what it could be. Also, it raises questions about how much further taking a stand against racism will go and how much people will look into the groups similar to the KKK. Ron Stalworth took a stand against the KKK by infiltrating and investigating them. He took a stand by keeping all the records and proof of the investigation when he was told not. We should all learn from this. That way, we can stop hate and racism and make sure that this does not happen again.